Hi everyone, Coach Cindy here from Olive Training, and I have a special guest. I have a Valerie here with me, and I'm really excited that Valerie has said yes to sharing kind of like her journey or a part of her journey where she was before coaching and where she is now. So thanks a lot for joining us, Valerie.
Thank you.
So Valerie, let's start off by kind of painting a picture. Who is Valerie?
Now or before?
Whoa, whoa. Well, we can go both versions, I guess. It's just tell us a little bit about who Valerie is.
So I'm a mom of three boys, 25. Sorry, I just made that lie. That's he's 24, 19, and 16. And I recently got married a year ago. So there's three stepchildren as well. The youngest one is 14. Wow, I just should have wrote that down in my notes. So it seems kind of crazy, but actually it's not. My life is kind of pretty boring because they're all self-efficient and they drive and they all, my youngest is a little bit of driving to and from school and football and stuff. But other than that, my life, it's almost like an empty nester. So I do home child care. I have worked in licensed care and different things throughout my life. But when I got married, I decided to quit my job and move to a small town in Springfield, actually, and start home child care there, which I had done when my children were little. So that's brought back some calmness and lots of passion and lots of fun in my day. But I felt like didn't have a lot to do with my time. I recently wrote a children's book through coaching. I got the courage. I had started it prior and never got sat down to finish, but I got the courage to finish it. And actually, I'm meeting with the printing company this week to see about the printing process for that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's who I am. I always loved fitness. I worked out at the gym. I was a fitness manager. I've since 2016 is when I started my fitness journey. Prior to that, I was actually obese, struggled with emotional eating, struggled with fitness. I didn't even walk into a gym. So 2016 is when I joined a gym. I actually started my fitness journey much sooner than that with just my weight loss journey from after when my son was 2. So he's now 16. So about 14 years ago, I started to pay more attention to health and nutrition, I guess, but still a lot of learning needed to come along the way.
Yeah. So when Valerie joined me, she already had like all of those years of, so she was pretty consistent at the gym. She was already lifting weights. She was already familiar with calorie counting, all of those things. So she wasn't like a lot of the clients that they have are very like green or what I call level one. Valerie wasn't coming in as a level one client because she had all of these kind of like skills already built up over time. But she did need a lot of fine tuning. So let's kind of paint a picture of where you were that you were like, hey, I need coaching. Like paint that picture for women who are listening.
Yeah, so that was the thing. I did every diet out there, fasting, Weight Watchers, calorie deficit majorly. I did the binging the weekend, starve through the week. Like literally, I did the salad diet where I'd eat lettuce for a couple days to try to bring my weight down because I depended on the scale and I was an emotional eater, but I was determined not to gain weight. Now, mind you, over those years, there was times my weight did go up and down a good probably 20 pounds and then back down again due to different things in life and stressors, emotional eating, letting other people dictate in my mind how I should be or what I should do at social gatherings, things like that. And just like really not understanding some things from my childhood, which caused me to overeat and things like that. So I really just wasn't healthy. My digestive system was not good and also struggles with bladder control. So I just in the summer, I got late spring, early summer, I just really got frustrated. And I actually tapped into one of Cindy's videos where Christine was on talking about digestive system and had just popped up on my social. And I watched that. And that's what got me interested into coaching program because I didn't want to have bladder surgery. because running, bladder leakage, different things, sneezing, coughing. Also, digestive issues that I was having were becoming really uncomfortable. I depended a lot on diet drinks and no sugar drinks to not eat at times. So I would drink a lot of coffee, I would drink a lot of diet pop, and I hadn't done that in years, but that was what I was resorting to. So that was not helping the digestive system either. And I also didn't eat fats. There was no way I was going to use oil or butter. There was no way I was going to have potatoes unless it was Christmas or maybe Thanksgiving, because I was like, those are just so high in calorie and I need my calories to be so low. So I could eat ice cream on the weekend or have alcohol. And I was so fearful of gaining weight back because I was overweight for many years that it just really controlled my life. And then, like I said, the digestive system and the bladder leakage was just becoming out of control. I couldn't jog on a treadmill without having issues. And that just became not comfortable.
Yeah.
So I reached out.
So one of the things there was like, okay, so we started working together. So you were you understood how to do calorie counting, and you were
Mm-hmm.
used to putting your calorie deficit so low. So there was one
Mm-hmm.
thing where you were, hey, I only want to eat this less amount of food as possible because I don't want to gain weight. But then there was a different cycle that was happening is when you did overeat or you overindulge or you ate the things that you felt were bad, then it was this restrict cycle came on. Okay, now I gotta go, eat less and less. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to first paint is kind of that picture is like you were restricting foods in the sense of you were only eating certain foods because it was based on the calorie count of those foods. But
Mm-hmm.
then the cycle was you would jump on the scale. If the scale was
Mm-hmm.
up, sometimes that would influence whether or not you would binge or overeat as well. And but then you would go back to restricting. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then to manage hunger, you were managing it through coffee or through low calorie drinks. And in order to
Mm-hmm.
get your protein, you were doing protein bars, protein shakes, kind of that processed protein thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a really important pitch because that was one element or one component that we worked on together
Mm-hmm.
is one, how do we expand your food
Mm-hmm.
list? Two is how do we not just look at calories, we look at balanced eatings because you were experiencing cravings, you were experiencing eating on the weekends as well. So can you talk a little bit about that and kind of paint the picture of, yeah, that's what I was doing for women, and then this is kind of what we did to kind of work through that.
Yeah, so that was what I was exactly doing, and then so I could get through the cravings during the week because it'd be like, well, I know I'm going to have it on the weekend, but then I wouldn't track on the weekend or be accountable. So even though on 2 or 3 days, depending if it was a long weekend, you're only eating you think you think during the week you're eating 1,200 calories. Like that's what I would do at times. So you think that on the weekend you could eat what you want, but if you actually do the math, what I was eating on the weekend was so like an ice cream alone can be 1,000 calories if it's from
Mhm.
Dairy Queen, right? It just so like and the alcohol, right? Like wine and drinks, like next thing you know, you have 6 of them, and so you for what you were doing on the weekend, it was just so high in calorie that was just of course then causing like each weekend a little bit of weight, a little bit of weight, a little bit of weight, right? And then I got very fearful again. So that was the one thing learning with originally too was going to the 10 days where we eat clean. We take away 5 for the foods, the caffeine, sugars,
Gluten, dairy.
processed foods,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, for the
Um,
for the gut protocol, yeah.
yeah, we basically inflammation was another issue I was having. So shoulder pain, knee pain, and that all went away. So within that, we weren't balancing macros, we weren't counting calories, but I saw some of the benefits of that. So then when we went back to the counting of the calories, and then also speaking with Christina, the digestive specialist I spoke with, adding in flax seeds and oils and different things, and still seeing me being able to. I was still losing some of the weight that I had gained over doing the washer diet, I guess. And so seeing that it was working, and I was starting to get success with the discomfort that I was having in inflammation and
Okay.
also the digestive system, right? So it was, so then basically with Christine and Cindy's help on adding in those oils and those butters, and even at times adding in some rice and some potatoes and avocado, and seeing the benefits, and then starting to balance my macros, like, so balance my fats, balance my proteins, balance my carbs. Now, if you hire Cindy, she'll explain all that, and that can be overwhelming because I actually tried balancing those before in the past and I never succeeded. Of all the diets I did, of all the tracking methods, I found that one to be super challenging, but Cindy can simplify it for you and make it not so overwhelming. Now, mind you, I'm a little bit of an A personality, so I need to know exact numbers. So I had to depend on measurements at first, and I had to depend on using like my fitness pal to actually track them because I just didn't trust the process. But then when you start to see, because you take your photos and you start to see the progress, now my progresses were minor because I wasn't necessarily, or I was in a healthy weight zone. So that wasn't necessarily the problem. The problem I had is I wasn't healthy internally. You can look healthy, but that doesn't mean you're healthy, right? So what I was doing to my internally was just unhealthy. So that was what I was working on. And mentally, I wasn't healthy, right? I, was speaking with a couple of different people, like, I probably have and had an eating disorder. It just, you don't think you fall into that eating disorder because like they say bulimic and they say anorexic. Well, I really wasn't either one because I wasn't starving myself 24/7 and I wasn't
Yeah, but your
myself.
thoughts were of that.
Yes. And my everyday, like through Cindy, I learned to journal. I learned to get to the root of the problem. I learned to think about like, why am I eating this? Slow down, still allow yourself to have something, but let's not eat an ice cream that's this size. Let's eat an ice cream that's a scoop and enjoy it and savor it and put your fork down in between bites, chew your food, which was super challenging having little ones. I'm always rushing, like getting them food, getting them this, and just making the time and rescheduling the day to work through those things and being mindful of it. And then if I did get to a part one time where I ate a whole bag of popcorn, she's like, why did you eat the whole bag of popcorn? Could you have had a bowl? Did you need the whole bag? And it's because I just sat there and I just devoured it and not listening to my body and understanding when you're full and learning not to eat till you're 100% full because you don't need to be 100% full because you don't feel well afterwards, maybe 80%, and then see how you feel, right?
Yeah, I love all this because what you really focused on was that it wasn't just about the what you're eating, it's the why you're eating and the how you're eating. It was how you do all of those three things together. We also
Mm-hmm.
came to a place in our journey where you were getting, then you started to learn the macros. You said, hey, I need the precise numbers. And then we got to a place where, again, we were hyper fixated on the numbers all of the time. And
Mm-hmm.
then you and I had to practice, okay, we're going to go without tracking and just paying attention to how we feel in our body because you were used to being so reliant on something externally to help you
Mm-hmm.
understand what was going right or wrong that we now needed you to tune into your body as well. And there
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of trepidation when we first started that because
Mm-hmm.
that meant one, I now have to trust myself.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that.
It's hard. It's still hard. Like there are still days like I'll be like, I'm not going to look at the scale and I'll tell myself for so many days, but I still look at the scale. I'm not going to be perfect, but there's days I start to panic because at one point I started to increase my calories because we want to build muscle. And of course, your weight's going to go up and I panic. I go into panic mode. So I get the tape measure out and I measure my waist again and I measure my shoulders again and I measure the key. Like I don't necessarily do the full measurements because, my calf muscles, I'm not really worried about as much, but and I'm like, okay, I'm okay. I know, and I have to reassure myself. And then I also take photos, which is super, super, super important because, the weight if you look at a lot of things online, you can see people that post themselves at 145, depending on their height and their weight at 145, and they can look completely different
Yeah.
depending on what they have been doing. So the number on the scale is not just the key component, but also just when I do get into those panic modes, and even though like allowing like it's still the struggle, like when others around me are indulging in a lot of treats, and then for me not to binge at those points, and then sitting back and thinking about it and writing it out and processing it and understanding it. And it's hard because it does affect my mood. Still to this day, there's things where my kids will say, like what's going on? Because I'm in a mood because it's like these things are challenging. Like the food is challenging. Like it's not easy. But learning the tools, working through it, writing it out, understanding it each time you go through that, it taking ownership, not putting the blame, and then that makes everything cope. It makes you realize you're doing it. It makes you realize you're still successful. It makes you realize you don't have to depend on the number. You don't depend on the scale so much.
Yeah. And what I love about also, you doing the mindset work and alignment is again, you had tried many different things, but hadn't connected the dots. And so with you doing the mindset work, we connected on one that you had more pressure from others that you kind of realized in terms of like what they thought was what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
That negative energy influenced you as well.
Mm-hmm.
That you make a lot of, or you were in a state of making a lot of assumptions about what other people think about you or feel
Mm-hmm.
about what it is that you're doing. And then we made some connections between like some childhood experiences that had happened.
Mm-hmm.
So then that led to, wait a minute, that's why I emotional eat. Those are my triggers, or that's why I reward myself with food. So I think.
Yeah, that's a big one. The rewards, rewarding with food is huge. I just sorry to interrupt you, but I used to do that all the time. If I and that was one big thing when you said to me, "What else could you reward yourself with?" That was tough. I'm like, I don't know. Like it's really, really tough, and I had to really think about that.
Yeah.
And then the key too is like we do that to today, like with our kids. Like if you do this, we'll give you this. And I know as a child, like I was saying recently, that there was a lot of negativity in my life. But the positivity was on Fridays, Mom would be like, "We're gonna get ice cream. We're gonna eat the tub together." Right. So it was the positivity. And I realized recently the connection as to reason why I was rewarding myself with food. Because when I am struggling with just different things in life and I'm feeling down, when I was having difficulties such as childhood and negativity, the only positivity at time was the reward with the food. So
Yeah.
it really, you figuring that out and connecting that was huge.
Yeah. And then so talk about though so your mind would go to a place, you'd have an experience or somebody would say something that would trigger you, but then you would go to a place of like over analyzing or making assumptions. Then this like it's like I like the snowball gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then again, like you weren't just using food as reward, you were also using food as like your self-soothing there, like
Mm-hmm.
as kind of like a fuck it kind of scenario.
Yep.
So can you talk about just like the what you realized about your mind that maybe other diets didn't help you see that was there? But
Mm-hmm.
do you get what I'm saying? Or-
Yeah, so like what I realized for a big one was prior to going to a social gathering, I already got worked up because I had heard people in the past say things like, "You're happier when you're in a good mood because you're eating the junk and you're drinking. We like you when you're drinking." And they'd go to the store and they would buy me candies and they would buy me chocolate and they'd be like, "She's happier." And so I'd feel like I had to let my guard down to be that happy, bubbly, outgoing Valerie. But the reason why I wasn't happy when I wasn't eating it because I was fearful of the judgment I was going to get. So I would come in a bitchy face and I'd be like, "I'm not eating this today." And I'd bring my own food and I'm not drinking today because I'd be so worked up over the number. And then I would be bitchy. But it had nothing to do with the food. It had to do with me assuming that they were going to think that I'm bitchy.
Mhm.
But I was only bitchy because I was assuming the judgment.
Yeah.
So that was a huge one, a huge one. And then what I would do is I would either not eat it all before going to a party, if I was going to then just eat whatever. And then I'd come home and binge some more because I would be so mad at myself for overeating. So that's the snowball would just keep going. That I would eat so much I'd feel so sick. Then I would the next couple of days not eat much at all because
Yeah.
I feel so bad. So not understanding all of that was huge. And realizing it had nothing to do with those people. I need to go in and I need to be positive. And I know like initially the judgment's there. My mom originally, when I told her my birthday, "Mom, please, before I come, I want you to know I'm doing a coaching program. I'm eating clean right now. So I'm not going to have these things." I had to be like, let's change the subject. Let's talk about how is church going or the friends. How are your kids? How are your parents? Let's not talk about it because talking about it is when it sets that negativity in my mind. And I realized that recently. Let's not even talk about health and nutrition. Let's try to talk about other things. And that is a big one. I realized that changes the tone, which then helps my mind and helps me not get into that snowball. Because
Yeah.
once we start to talk about it, people make comments and I feel judged.
And I think you also got to a place because one of the things you do love is ice cream. And so you got
Mm-hmm.
to a place where it was like, I enjoy the ice cream, not because I'm rewarding myself, not because I was triggered, not because I did really well Monday to Friday and now it's the weekend and I get to overindulge and reward myself. But you actually just got to a place where you're like, I enjoyed it. I ate it slow, I ate it mindfully, and I moved on. It didn't mean I have to
Yeah.
work out to the excess calories. It doesn't mean I have to jump on the scale. All of the things came from that. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think it's good to like paint that picture to be like, this is where I was, this is what I had to work through, and this is the place that I kind of got to
Mm-hmm.
with food too. Go back to digestion though, because I think that that is most women, one will tell me, one, I've always had issues going to the bathroom. I've always been the kind of person who goes every 3 to 4 days. So that's my normal. My mom had that issue too. That's the
Mm-hmm.
story I'll get. Or is that they don't understand the connection between digestion and, like you said, for you, pelvic floor, but also
Mm-hmm.
weight. So can you talk about what you learned about that connection for you and how things shifted?
I just learned that like it necessarily didn't I didn't notice that I looked different or that it affected the weight. It was more about how I felt internally. So like my stomach would be hard and uncomfortable and I was not able to go to the washroom. So that would be uncomfortable. Right. And then of course, if your digestive system is not working well, it puts pressure on the bladder, which can cause bladder leakage. So that was huge too. Right. So for me, it was just more about when I started to eat the foods that helped me not be constipated, the relief of that and the feeling of how I felt just made me feel better
Yeah.
internally.
Yeah. Makes your clothes fit better, makes you stronger in the gym, makes you be able to do the things, right?
The stronger in the gym is key too, because honestly, like if you're running on the treadmill and you feel like you need to go to the washroom, the whole time that's all you're thinking about. You're not even able to get, it's like your mind is just like, you're not able to get into your workout,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
intimacy too. It affects your intimacy. And, like, so like that it's just, and a lot of people resort to surgeries and resort to, like I went to pelvic floor specialist as well. And I learned to do some different techniques as well. But there's just so much you can do prior to needing to get to those stages. But unfortunately, like, if I go to my doctor, he wouldn't have educated me on the same way as a naturopath or a pelvic floor specialist or, learning through coaching, the things I learned and the importance of having those healthy fats in your diet. They would have just probably provided me with a prescription or said, let's go talk to a surgeon.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the last thing I want is surgery
Yeah.
again, ever.
Well,
So
let's shift gears and talk about the gym though, because you were avid at
training.
going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
The goal was first to lose a little bit of weight, and then the goal shifted to building muscle. So we not only worked on nutrition in terms of pre and post workout nutrition, but we looked at, okay, let's change up kind of the workout program. So I think this is an important discussion or point to kind of talk about is because some women have consistency in the gym, but they are not seeing the results that they want to see. So talk about kind of, what shifted for you in terms of
Mm-hmm.
workouts.
So I was overtraining. I was always over supersetting. I was there 7 days a week. And I was there for a minimum of 1 hour. And it was like, nope, I got to be sweating. I got to keep moving. So I can't just rest in between. I don't feel sweaty when I'm resting. Like, this is crazy. And I wasn't increasing my weights. I was at the same weights for the longest time because I did have a few just injuries. So I felt if I increased my weights, my injuries were going to flare up and I'd come home and be uncomfortable. So, a few things I did increase here and there, but a few speeds for running and things like that, but really wasn't. And when you gave me your first workout, so I shared with Cindy what I would do. And she's like, okay, let me take a look at that and I'll send you something new. And I did her first workout and it might have took 45 minutes. A little, maybe because, you're setting things up a little differently. So it took a little longer to wrap my head around it. And I was like, no, this isn't good enough. Like, this isn't going to work. Like, and the resting, like I timed the rest if it was a 2-minute rest or a 1-minute rest. And it wouldn't be a superset. So it might be just it might be just a squat. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, like this is gonna, and there was a lot of band work and a lot of mobility work. So there wasn't necessarily a lot of heavy weights. But when they do weights, it was learning how to press what I thought was heavy wasn't heavy. Because when you're taking your rest time, you can realize how heavy you can go. And one thing I was just telling Cindy before the call was I started at about 180 for leg press, double leg. I'm now at like 540 pounds. It's insane. So learning that, I've been at this weight, let's increase even by 2.5 pounds. Learning 5 pounds, 10 pounds, learning how much you can actually do is key. And when you're resting and you're recovering, you can obviously lift heavier, which before I was like, oh, I can't do it because of my shoulder and my knee. It was excuses. So I was there and I was there for an hour at minimum. And there was days I taught fitness that I was doing so much cardio because I was doing aquafit teaching, sweating. I was teaching spin. I was super overtraining. And I just make sure I got like 15,000 steps a day. And then if I didn't get it, I got to walk on the treadmill while the kids are resting. I got to, like I was obsessed and I wasn't getting the results. Like, so for instance, when we first took my photos, my shoulders were uneven a lot and the back, I'll call it the loose skin, right? And it didn't matter what my weight was. But then as we started to take the photos, we started to see my shoulders were starting to even out. A lot of that was from back and band work and not necessarily the strength work. I still make sure I incorporate the band work in my routines because I could see the results I was getting from that and a lot of the back exercises. And not, so seeing the results was major. And then realizing to trust that I don't need to do these 7 days a week. So I make sure I take 2 days off. But rest doesn't mean do nothing. I might golf that day. I definitely still walk in some form or bike, right? It doesn't mean not do anything. I don't just sit and watch movies all day, but I'm not doing my peaks.
Yeah.
I'm not doing my heavies. I might
do you remember the workout program though that you got? Because like the program changes, right? It's not the same one the whole time. And do you remember you had to do the exercise? I think it was for 6 minutes. I think
Yes.
that's and you were like, that is hard.
Yeah, it was a 6 minute step up on a block, like a block or like a stair. And of course, I'm like, oh my God, this isn't enough. So I picked the tallest block and I couldn't do the 6 minutes. I did 3. And then I finished the last 3 on the stair mill because I'm like, I got to finish 6 minutes. I just can't finish it at this level. And then there was also a tricep push up in it. There's like, who can do a tricep push? I call it a tricep push up. People call it a narrow push up. People call it a push up. But anyways, who can do this for 6 minutes? And you're like, oh, no, you do as long as you can. You rest when you need to. You go back to it or you go to a level. I'm like, okay. But yeah, that was tough for sure. But it wasn't a lot of exercises in that workout.
Yeah.
There was,
the point,
maybe
right?
3 or 4 exercises because that was the point, was getting to your heart rate to that peak during it, but then going back to it when you could, and then building the strength and different things, right?
And then the phase changes and you go back, and then you tell me before the call is you did 10 tricep push-ups in a row, whereas before you could barely do one. And then you tell
me I couldn't do any.
Yeah, the leg press went from 180 to 540. That's how you start to build. And I love that you're pointing this out, is because a lot of women, again, go to the gym, don't see results, but they're not looking at how am I changing up. It's not necessarily about changing up, doing random workouts or changing up the program necessarily, because even you and I had a discussion about still doing the same workouts. I'm just changing, I'm using a landmine instead of a dumbbell. I'm just switching up some of those things. And a lot of women think it's about, I need a new workout program. And then you read all of this stuff and you're just like, okay, I need to challenge myself in weights. But a lot of women don't understand how to push themselves to the peak to then be able to, like, I always like to envision like your glass ceiling is, what's your glass ceiling? Stay at your glass ceiling for a bit and then challenge to see if you have a new glass ceiling. And that's kind of what you learned how to do as well. You learned how to also not be so cardio focused and be a bit more focused too.
Yeah, exactly. And then also to do things that learn something new, like for instance, golf, right? I hated it, absolutely disliked it. And I'm actually starting to enjoy it. Though, mind you, it's frustrating because you hit the ball one time, you think you've got it nailed down, and then you go and next time you're doing something completely wrong. And, it takes a couple of years to really learn. It really does. But also, you got to go to the driving range. If you're going to learn golf, you need to be at the driving range. My husband's a really competitive golfer, so I'm lucky he's been teaching me.
Yeah.
But also, it's a bonding because now that I'm golfing, my boys golf. So the younger two will go, and well, the younger three boys, Dave's youngest son, and then my husband. So the thing is that before, like we used to disc golf together, they don't want to do it anymore. They used to go to the gym. They don't want to do that anymore. They don't want to do
Yeah.
things with mom. But this they want to do. So I'm doing it with like, I don't want to go because I don't like being there that long, 3 hours, it's 18 holes, blah, blah, blah. But it's like not about that because you need to have that time to have the peace, to have it's relaxing.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, but it's relaxing. The environment's relaxing. It's quiet. It's peaceful. The kids are out there. So it's such a good experience to tap into some new things versus just like dedicating my time at the gym,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And one of the things, like you said at the very beginning of this talk, was you talked about like, hey, I started a children's book, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily have the confidence how to do it. And so through the coaching journey, we set it as a goal. You worked on it, then you got an illustrator, then you
Mm-hmm.
did the corrections, and now here you are at kind of like publishing. You're looking
Mm-hmm.
at then launching it through a YouTube channel. I just love focusing on that because it's not just about like you've already talked about intimacy, you already talked about connection. It's not just about like weight or muscle or like this fitness and health thing. It's like how then it trickles into these other areas of your life as well.
It's about being your best self. So you can settle. You can settle into a pocket, right? Like I was settled. I was like, oh, I have the kids. This is a good job. I like my job. I have a good, life, like in a sense. But I was settling in a sense. I wasn't pushing myself to my potential. And I will admit that through my relationship with my husband, he's pushed me into different things because I settled in a job and then I went into a new job, right? And then I settled into a job again. Then, because we were going to sell our homes and then the market wasn't good. So I moved into his home and, started another new job. But like, we're always talking about like, pushing herself to her full potential is key, right? And I think everyone needs to do that in life. Like, and we talk about my 5-year goals and we talk about my 20-year goals, and I'm on the path and I'm hitting those goals.
Mhm.
And I remember we did a balancing your wheel. It's huge. So like I was, you know, if you do coaching with Cindy, you'll learn a little bit about that. But like for me, like moving out into the country, there were some components of my wheels that weren't social wheel that wasn't balanced. And how can I get that back? And by doing the children's book and starting a YouTube channel, it's going to start to build the social components because, friends shift in life as you shift in life. So, and if you're not indulging in the same kind of party style, things shift. So just making sure you prioritize balancing your wheel was one of the other key components I learned from you to just help me stay grounded, focused.
Yeah. What would you say are you most proud of since going through coaching?
Um, I think the courage to, I haven't published the YouTube channel, but the courage to get to where I'm at and the book. So the book is going to be pertaining to children and children's stories, but also meets health and fitness component. So because it's going to be there to support families with social anxieties and different things with children, but then also I'm going to have that component of health and fitness incorporated. Originally, I was going to do a fitness health YouTube channel, but then I decided to incorporate both my passions. My passions are children and health and fitness. So I feel like getting to this point, it would be most proud moment. Now, getting the book published is going to be key because then I'll be able to just put it on the channel and start to make the videos and post the stuff onto the channel. So that is definitely going to be a very proud moment, but I'm working towards that.
Yeah.
I think that would be, I think too, honestly, I know you said one, but also understanding where the roots of my problems came from as a child and the blame and just not feeling confident and almost the blame as to why I was there. Like, the people in my life that affected me and then realizing where that all stemmed from and came from
Yeah.
and understanding that and being able to realize and forgive, realize their intentions and then forgive.
And it makes you show up differently, right, in those relationships. Because, like you said, when you painted the
Yeah.
picture of going into the party, it's like you already, you're changing that relationship with social things, but you're changing that relationship with other people as well. What would you say to, what do you wish more women understood about what it really takes to change?
They need to reflect. They need to journal. They need to understand. They need to not just the excuses. They have to stop making excuses. I hear a lot of, "Oh, my knees are bad. I can't run." But you can, "Oh, I have to go to a doctor and I'm on meds. I have to have meds to cope to do this." You can change. You can change it. I did. My knee, I have arthritis in my knee and it was diagnosed in 2016. It's still minor.
But not
You
even
learn.
your eyes.
Yes, I have a vision impairment, RP, retinitis pigmentosus. So it made me feel like at times I can't control that. So then I need to take control of other things in my life because I can't control the path that takes. But I want to make sure that I'm going to be mobile and be able to do things on my own and not have to depend on somebody else because my mom is legally blind and she can't cope on her own because she hasn't learned how to do things because unfortunately my dad has coddled her. I don't want to have that happen. I want to be able to go to the grocery store on my own and move. And that was one of the pushes for me too, the motivations to keep me going to the gym and to keep me eating healthy because I don't want to be dealing with other things that would cause me to not be mobile.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess how do I say this? Oh, what does taking care of yourself mean to you now versus before?
I think definitely I really pay attention to the digestive system and making sure that I'm keeping like when I there's a couple times where it's like, okay, I didn't eat what I should have eaten and I see that and then okay, let's get those foods back into my diet, you know? That's key because that overall affects everything. That affects my inflammation, that affects how I feel, right? So then if I don't then that and the other thing is just being under like just journaling and understanding and reflecting and processing and things like that.
Yeah. Anything else you would like to like as we come to the end of this kind of like talk or whatever, anything else that you would like women to know?
They can do it. Um, and I had some notes. I just wanted to see if there was anything that I didn't. I think I got most of my notes. I just wanted to check. You can do it. Cindy will definitely help you get through those struggles. Don't make excuses. You want to be mobile walking when you're in your 80s and your 90s, you're even 100, right? So a lot of the time people say, this is a big one. I'm happy. I want to be happy. So they want to eat the cake. They want to indulge at the party because they want to be happy. But that shouldn't be what makes you happy because if you have a heart attack, are you happy? Are you happy because you're living a happy life, your best life because you want to indulge and have the treats and the sweets and the fun things? But are you really happy when you're in pain and your discomfort? Your digestive system's not working well, your knee hurts, your shoulder hurts. Are you happy? So if you really want to be your happiest self, you got to do the work. You got to put the work in if you want to live your best life and be your best person. And
Yeah.
then obviously through working with you, there was a lot of things I had to work on.
Yeah.
And
I think it was like a lot of like micro things because, like I said, Valerie came in not as a newbie. She wasn't green. It was like fine tweaking some of the things she had, but then through that process of fine tweaking, she discovered new holes in her bucket that then needed
mm,
work on. And then that's gotten her to this phase. And it's not
mm,
to say that, hey, there won't be any other leaks later on.
right.
Because you're going to evolve and change and your goals are going to shift as well and your
Mm-hmm.
needs. So then you figure out, okay, but now you've got an evolution of skills in your bucket to
Mm-hmm.
tack on. And not to say that you might not need new skills, but that's where we want to be to in order to then. And I always think about that meme that goes around and it's like this old couple, they're in like Italy and they're in this like nice like boat or whatever, and they're retired and they're both sleeping. And it's like we keep thinking like when life slows down, when I retire, when I'm done working, when I'm whatever, when we push it off. And it's like you can push it off so far, but your health doesn't stop because your mind says, I want to push it off. And then oftentimes when you push it off, it's too late to enjoy what it is that you said you wanted to do in the later life. So I love that you're like, hey, I want mobility, I want flexibility, I want to be able to do everything that I can and not be reliant on other people, as little as possible, in order to live my happiest self. And my happiest self doesn't come from indulging in every single thing.
Hmm. And definitely the truth of, I lost my train of thought, which is so funny.
Sorry, I went on.
No, that's okay. I just know like a lot of people, they say a lot of the times, like, they give them just alcohol and it makes them happy. And just like they make these excuses as why they can't do things differently or change things. And just like you, or the pain they have, like I said before, right? So they can't. You might need, or the time. I'm time. I have to take my kids here. I have to do this. You have the time because, like, I've heard you say, how many hours a day are you scrolling on your phone nonsensely? Like, you have the time. It's about you and you being your best self. And if you want to be mobile for life and you want to be your best self and you want to be your full potential and you don't want to settle and be settling in a pocket, you got to push yourself.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much for joining us today and sharing. I always love it when I coach men and they say yes to this,
Mhm.
because one is your story that's unique to you, but I also know that it'll resonate with other women that are watching this. So thanks so much, Valerie.
Yeah, you guys have a great day and all the best to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.